Hello, everyone. This is Ali Azzeddin for Generation for Education, and this is our special day around approaches to learning or the 21st century skill. This is session 4 for today. We had 3 very interesting sessions this morning, and as I told you, the afternoon session will be very hands-on with a lot of ideas that you can take back to your classroom. So a quick intro. I'm live on Facebook. For all the people who are watching on Facebook, you can interact with us via Facebook. I will be checking all your responses and I will be reading them. The people here watching on Zoom, feel free to introduce who you are, where are you watching from, what is your role. If you have any question to Rachel, feel free also to share it via the Q&A. And so, Rachel, I think we are ready to start, and I need to share my screen, and then we can get to know a little bit more about you. And we welcome everyone, and we give it a start. So let me see. Are you able now to see my screen and all the details, Rachel?
Yes, I can see. That's perfect. Thanks, Sally.
Very good. I'm also live on Facebook. Okay. I can see that people are watching from Saudi Arabia, Uzbekistan, Dubai, UAE, and they are ready for this session, even from Qatar, India, and many other countries. I can see Heba from Lebanon, Indonesia. They are ready to learn about the ATL, and they are ready to take some practical application that they can implement in the classes. So we are going to give it a quick start, and here we are going to check who is Rachel. Hi.
Hi, I'm going to say good morning to everybody because I'm here in the UK. I think I'm possibly the only one in the UK, and I wouldn't be, it wouldn't be right to talk to you from the UK without mentioning the weather, as all British people do. And it's pretty cold here with 10 degrees, with a little bit more chill coming next week. So although I'm hosting from the UK at the moment, I have been working in the UAE as well internationally, which is how I met Ali. I've spent 30 years in education, both as a teacher and a leader. And although I trained in the UK national curriculum, I was introduced to the IB and PYP when I came over to the UAE and was absolutely converted to the programme. And just as another, I'm also a Shobi certified educator and an Apple teacher, which I think lends itself very, very well to ATLs and to PYP practice as well. And my website, which I will mention later.
Yes,
so
we will have a
chance
to explore
you
all your work and everything you are sharing with the educators. So let's continue and check what are the questions for this afternoon. Afternoon in Dubai, okay. Early morning for you, and maybe absolutely. For the people who are watching in Morocco. Madiha is watching on Facebook, so I'm saying hello to her and to everyone following on Facebook.
Okay, so my questions, and I really do believe in the power of questions here. It's so great to start anything at all with the children with questions. How can we use our 21st century skills? And particularly, a huge interest of mine is how that goes into that standalone learning. I feel that they go very, very easily with our units of inquiry if you're a PYP practitioner. But the standalone ones I always used to find a little bit tricky. So I'm going to explore a little bit of that with you today. And how can we tweak our pedagogy? So how can we just make those small tweaks that are then going to use those ATLs in our practice, in our daily routines? We can make small tweaks that save us time, but also hit those objectives. A formula for success. We all want the magical winning formula. How can we do this? What's going to work every time? I will share with you something that I believe is possibly a formula for success, and we'll see if it's going to work for you. A practical tip there. Particularly what resources can support 21st century learning skills. It's a real area of interest. I know we've got now the Lalatat site, which devotes itself to developing skills, but certainly when I started out, and I don't know if you've had the same experience, searching for resources that really support ATLs has been a bit of a challenge in the past. There's a lot of content heavy materials out there. And then, of course, our reflections, what we've learned, what we can share from one another, because as true PYP practitioners, we've all got something to offer and learn from each other.
Perfect. I think we are ready to jump in this
Ready
webinar. And let's have a look on this first intro where we need to create a common understanding. So what do we mean by approaches to learning? Let's hear from Rachel.
So I made the assumption that a lot of people tuning in are probably from a PYP background or maybe new to PYP background and hoping for some magic tips. Just to make sure that we are talking that same language, if we're not from a PYP background, ATLs were previously known by the PYP as the transdisciplinary skills. With the enhancements, they became known as the approaches to learning, which then makes it all nicely in line with MYP and so on. So when I talk about ATLs, I'm using that PYP terminology. Outside of the IB, the 21st century skills that we talk about are very, very similar. It's some people refer to them as those soft skills, those skills about how we learn as opposed to what we learn. PYP uses this lovely little model here, and they break it down into the thinking, research, communication, social, and self-management, which is possibly very familiar to some of you. And if you flick on to the 21st century skills, this is just a section of a rubric from Cambridge, and you'll see there that as they're breaking down those skills, ways of thinking, ways of working, tools for working, they're all there embedded in the same way. So there's slight variations of terminology, but in essence, we're talking about those how to learn skills and the skills that children need in order to become those lifelong learners.
Riham was asking, is it only for primary educators? And then I said, you will for sure take some ideas for the middle school or the high school, especially that in the IB now, the terminology is common for the primary years program, the middle years program, and the diploma program. And we will have, if I'm not mistaken, also a chance to talk about the vertical alignment, right, Rachel?
Oh, absolutely. And certainly in my last post as a PYP co, we ran through into MYP, and so I worked closely with my MYP coordinator, and at the end we've got some reflection tools there as well that may well just assist you with that vertical alignment. Yeah.
Perfect. So if you are used to the word 21st century skills, or if you are using the ATL, PYP, MYP, or DP, you are in the right place and you can continue with us, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
So as a true PYP practitioner, we're always sharing resources, and a lot of you may well be on some of the same Facebook groups or social media where we're busily sharing tips as we go. We're constantly learning and in that learning environment. This is just a snapshot of a lovely rubric that a lady designed from part of our PYP group where we were in Dubai. And I just found it such a useful tool, because when we're talking about those transdisciplinary skills, and this one is just part of communication skills, then I found that when I was talking to teachers, what we meant when we're having those planning meetings and planning the units of inquiry, what we meant by communication skills clearly is different when you're looking at early years and right through to grade 6, 7, 8 and beyond. And although within the IB we've been encouraged to understand children are growing in their phases and at different times, still I found certainly a lot of my teaching staff liked that sort of almost boxing children a little bit and have some year group expectations. And I think providing we have that understanding that children aren't fixed to, excuse me, aren't fixed to that particular year group necessarily, but we have a focus point as to roughly what they ought to be learning at that point. This continuum I felt was really, really helpful. And they are out on social media to share where those rubrics can be considered, and it just helps you pinpoint what's the best skill for a particular age. And those skill developments is very, very easy, I found, to try and make sure that they fit into the unit of inquiry and to be very much a curriculum link. But actually there's a lot of opportunity in the hidden curriculum for those ATLs to be developed. So they can be there right there in your class culture. They can be embedded in your lesson structure as well as the resources. So today is also about looking for those opportunities where we can use ATLs and know that we're hitting some of them. They need to be consistent throughout the year, and we can be doing that through our class culture rather than just targeting it in a content way. So some of those classroom routines, I'm sure people can add into the chat here and share some of your sort of go-to habits. A few of my sort of go-to habits here are, I've seen this quite recently done very, very effectively, where children getting into that sort of peer assessment and self-assessment and understanding where their own learning is. I saw recently some children doing some writing, and they had their own rubrics and their own targets. But as they wrote and they knew which target they were working on, they actually just highlighted that in their own writing as they went. And it was a simple little trick, but quite clearly as they're doing that, they're taking account of their own learning. And it's something that you can just train your children to do very quickly and works very well. I've also seen quite recently, and this probably verges on being slightly corporate in a way, which isn't something that the IB particularly advocates, obviously, but using some icons for thinking strategies. If you're using slides in your session, having a couple of pause points, or you might have school-wide icons that you can use, and they can just be that moment to get you, as I'm sure you do with reflection, but you can do with other strategies, and you make them part of those slides. I'm sure a lot of you use those visible thinking routines on your wall. I've also seen in one school that I visited, having their class set up in teams, or this one was crews. So each class had 2 crews in their class, and it just develops that sense of social communication, their teamwork, etc. Assessment partners, I'm sure again lots of you use these in useful ways, but again, one I saw quite recently that I thought was a quick, easy way. Some children were doing it just a standard mental arithmetic test, which is one of those grim standalone kind of tasks. But afterwards, the children partnered up, they went through each other's papers, they looked to see which answers they had the same, which ones they had differently. If they had different answers, they chatted about it. And it was just one of those little routines and habits that you can instill in your children in one of those mundane tasks to get those ATL skills in there. Somebody's just added meditation space. Again, yes, there's great areas for reflection, etc. Another one that I've spotted recently that I liked, and again, you may do this, is I certainly used exit tickets quite a lot, but entry tickets was quite a nice idea. One teacher started with a simple entry question, and the children came in, did their entry question. Then if they got that part of the question, if they got that slide right, then they moved straight on to a different task, because it was a quick self-assessment, and it saved, it was part of time management really, and time management on the teacher's part, which was a great trick. Classroom, libraries, absolutely. Things like if your children using iPads, or you've got your PC up there, or using just the timer that's on there. Okay, in 3 minutes, I need you to have done this, be ready when your clock turns to this. Just that idea of building in the self-management in those daily routines. The list is endless, and I really appreciate there people adding into the chat all their top routines, so we can just share that practice amongst us. We can always pick up those
Yes, so Rachel, we got a meditation space, we got the library space in the library, and many other ideas in the chat. I remember everyone, or I remind everyone to choose in the chat to everyone, so everyone can read the ideas, and you are not just sharing them with me and with Rachel. Are we ready to move to the following slide?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Love having those top routines. So we're kind of, I think, doing this through the chat, just those, and Ali's just given us a few examples there of some of the best things that we do, those best habits, those best tips, and embedding them in your hidden curriculum, which, as I say, is that helps with your own time management as an adult. It helps you make sure all those things are embedded.
So any other routines to be added in our chat? We're happy to hear to your ideas. And I think we got a question from Henna. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Bloom question? Maybe we need to clarify it for the people who are not familiar with the Bloom taxonomy.
Right, yes, sure. Bloom's taxonomy is such a great tip. I mean, it's fabulous for your differentiation. It builds up some questions. So at your basic level, you might have a text, for instance, and you might just simply ask some children to retrieve and gather some facts from that text. And that just shows that they have understood that, that text. As it develops through the Blooms, you're getting into things like synthesize and analyze. So you're asking children to develop much higher thinking skills in order to be able to answer the questions. And one of those little tips that I've seen, which I like, is a teacher just had a key ring with all the different Bloom sort of keywords, you know, the analyze, synthesize, evaluate, on a simple key ring. And as she's teaching, you know your children who you can aim those questions at, you know, a little bit like the lollipop stick routine. And as you're doing that, you can just talk about something and ask an evaluation question to one pupil, an understanding question to another pupil, a knowledge question to another. And having these tools just at hand just helps you keep that practice embedded in your day-to-day work.
Okay, and we're getting also some ideas about teaching social emotional learning. We're getting ideas about the ongoing group work and collaboration. So these are the ideas that we got from the chat, and then the people, they are sharing and supporting each other with ideas in the chat. So let's have a look now at some inquiry cycles and the connection between inquiry and approaches to learning.
Absolutely. So again, if you are familiar with IB, then the inquiry cycle will certainly be very familiar to you, and variations of it. We used to use Kath Murdoch's inquiry cycle, which you'll see here: tuning in, finding out, sorting out, going further, making connections, and taking action. That is a good structure to use either as your entire unit of inquiry, but also with those standalone lessons, using that cycle, the small cycles within lessons. They can be messy if you're not used to inquiry cycles. They don't always just follow that routine way round. You end up tuning in and then having a little bit of a connection making at some point, and then going back to sorting out, etc. But it is a good model to use. What I found with the staff I was working with, particularly I think if you come from possibly a more formal background, as I'd come from UK national curriculum, it's quite tricky to actually start implementing those inquiry cycles and getting all the all the components in and having the confidence to do it. So this is where hopefully I come in and I'll give you my magic formula, which is kind of based on this this inquiry cycle as well. So I was very, very fortunate about 18 months ago to go to the IB conference in Abu Dhabi. I'm sure you were there, Ali, and I'm sure a number of others on here were. And I happened upon one of the talks by Dr. Jake Madden, who was working in the UAE at the time in Abu Dhabi, but is an Australian educationalist. And he came up with this 8-point lesson, which really resonated to me. I found this a useful formula to use. It's very, very similar to that inquiry cycle, but if you are coming from a background of more formal teaching, or you've got people who are new to PYP, this I felt really sort of helps them get into that process. So I'm sure you can read for yourself, but that starting with the essential question, I mean, it's pure IB itself. And certainly if you're in a school where learning objectives are the main point, please beg your leaders to let you flip those around into questions, particularly in those standalone lessons. Just simply flick it into a question so it doesn't kill the learning for the children.
This is the secret, a top secret. I'm spreading it in all my workshop, and then I find sometimes that teachers are resistant in doing it. And this morning with Kevin, we were talking about this wall that exists in the workshop and in the webinar, and then that transfer to the classroom. So if you want to take a secret from the webinar today, tomorrow morning or on Monday, your lesson, let them be questions, open-ended questions.
Absolutely,
and let's
absolutely.
model it for the student. Go
Absolutely.
ahead, Rachel.
Certainly things, my background is primary classrooms. So when I'm teaching addition and subtraction, for instance, I would just flip that round into how does knowing about addition help us with subtraction? Just something simple to get you going and get into that thinking of questions, or how does the knowing the inverse of this help us with that? This kind of thing, straight away it grabs the children, it gets that curiosity, and you're not killing your lesson by starting off with that learning objective. So this very much lends itself to that. Again, those initiating starters, just getting that student engagement straight away. Maybe it's at the door when they come in, maybe it's a picture stimulus, maybe it's an object, an artifact, just to get them thinking. And then limiting the teacher talk, getting the students talking, which obviously builds in all those communication skills, the social skills. It naturally helps you embed those ATLs into your lesson without forcing it, if you like. Those graphic organisers, I will confess I was late to the programme with the power of the graphic organiser. What a great tool they are. Just helping children model their thinking. You know, it can hit so many of those thinking ATLs, but having children with those graphic organisers, getting their thoughts down, getting all those, and straight away as a teacher, you can identify so many misconceptions at the beginning of your lesson before you get to the end. When they're getting their thinking out in a graphic organizer, you can see straight away what misunderstandings are there. Such a handy tool. Keeping things active, of course, and keeping them challenging with those questions such as Bloom's. And then he's given this a summarize or a plenary, but to me that's our reflection, that ongoing reflection at the end of the lesson. And I felt this 8-point lesson really is a helpful formula. As a PYP co, one of the things that I did, and this led me into sort of making resources a little bit, was I created a shared drive with a bunch of resources for each of these points. So visible thinking routines, graphic organisers, ways that we can get movement in classes, differentiation tips. So we had a shared drive, so teachers could just pull on those resources to put their lessons together. And nothing in those resources was actually about content. It was all about the how of learning. I do hope that's useful. I found that a little nugget. So just through the chat, let's just take some ideas. How could that lesson structure support you? If you're a leader, how could it support your staff? How does it help you embed some of those 21st century skills in your practice? Let's love hearing some of your comments and suggestions.
So going back to the previous slide, so maybe it will be more helpful how this 8-point lesson or design or template will help you in embedding the approaches to learning. And so I can see Ibtihaj is mentioning that question, they can give sense to the learning. And so it's more meaningful.
Absolutely.
The learning is more adapted to the needs of the student. This is about the differentiation. And so what are the other approaches to learning that we can see embedded in this template if you want? Let us know your ideas in the chat. And I was also so happy while you were sharing, Rachel, your idea. Natasha was mentioning that they started chaining the objective and they are using questions at the beginning of the session. So Rana is saying that this lesson can promote the thinking skills. Graphic organizers connects to thinking
Absolutely.
and communication skills. The group work will develop the communication skills. And you see, it was now an easy kind of matching between the ATL and the structure of this lesson. Nahla is talking about the mind map and how they promote also thinking skills. So, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I just felt that this structure, it's very, very similar to that inquiry cycle. It gives it a little bit more structure, and it does allow you to just embed those. So, you know, if you've got a particular thinking skill that you're focusing on, you know that in that structure you've got time to develop that skill. It allows you that time to actually build it into what you're doing.
So I will share two more comments.
The active movement.
Yeah, two more comments. One about the active movement from Henna, which connected to the social skill and self-management skills. And then Rawan, she's talking about making the inquiry cycle visible. This will make the reflection and the thinking deeper. And then Ulu is mentioning that this will help teacher and student to reflect better on the aim of the lesson and if they are met or no.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I hope you found that as useful as I did when I came across it, and particularly for supporting new teachers. I'm just seeing there. I love that it ignites students' passion for learning. Absolutely. I mean that's what we're about. If you can ignite that passion for learning and give them the skills for learning, you know, that's absolutely what we're about. So moving on to some of the resources and things that we can use. I have got, I won't deny, I've got a bit of a bugbear with pre-prepared resources, and there's a flood of it in the internet, and I absolutely get, when we're so pressed for time, I absolutely get why we head for these. But I know certainly with the IB, the pre-produced resources aren't always the best, or if we're using them, maybe we can just tweak them and flick things around a little bit to really make them work for us in a useful way. So just like we might do some backwards by design planning, we can also just sort of look at some resources that are out there and available, and just see how we can tweak them a little bit and tweak our pedagogy to make them work for us. So if we just I think we might have a little survey coming up now. Let's see. I can have a rough guess of our Favorite.
Yes,
Okay.
so this is the survey. You are able to see it on your screen. So we have for you 5 questions, and we would like you to answer these questions. So let me know in the chat if you are able to see the poll and you are able to see our questions. So where do you mostly source resources? You have the option Twinkle, TES, White Rose, Teacher Paid Teachers, Lalatat, or others. The second question, do you consider the ATLs when looking for content-related resources? Yes, no, sometime. The third question will be, do you use graphic organizer as a part of your regular routine? Yes, no, sometimes. Question number 4, do you think your setting recognizes the value of the 21st century skills? A yes, a no, and a could be. And the last question that we would like to have an idea about from you, do you think your students recognize when they are using the 21st century skills or the ATL? So I'm giving a few seconds for all our attendees to get involved and to answer this question. And while we are giving them the time to answer, I can see that Henna is mentioning that some of the resources that she's using from Twinkle, they align a lot with what she's doing at the school. So Walter, if you don't mind answering using the poll, so in that case, we can get a nice data from all the attendees. A few more seconds, and then I will share the results with Rachel. Budur, who knows Lalatat, she said it's a perfect resource. But Budur, remember, you need to send the message to everyone. And then Arwa is asking, what are Twinkle resources? And this is a new learning for you, Arwa. You just need to go and Google it, and you will find a website, plenty of resource. I can see that people, Rachel, are not very familiar with TES and White Rose, and these are...
Yeah. I think they're probably quite UK centric.
Yes, it's very UK based, but again, the people can go and look at this. I'm going to end the poll and I'm going to share with you the results. And so let's have a look. So from where do you mostly source resources? We got 31%. Okay, so we get 33% for others. So maybe we are curious to know what are the other spaces.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind putting them in that chat. And then 31% it was teacher pay teachers, and then 26% Twinkle. If you are not familiar with TES, White Rose, and Lalatat, you can go and have a look after this webinar or at the end of the day, because we still have 2 webinars to check these resources. Okay. Now, do you consider the ATLs when planning for a content or checking for a resource? 48% they said yes from our attendees. Do you use graphic organizer as a regular part? And we got 45%, they said yes. Do you think your setting recognizes the value of the 21st century skills? And 60% of our attendees, they said yes. And finally, do you think your students recognize when they are using the 21st century skills? And we got 52% where they said sometimes.
That's really interesting. It is fascinating to look at all of this, and great that so many people are looking at resources for a range of different purposes as well. And great to hear that so many schools, certainly from the people here today, are really positive about developing 21st century skills. We did actually take out, Ali, I'm sure a lot of you are very familiar with it, but if not, do take a moment to look on YouTube there's a little video clip called Did You Know? And it's a fabulous short 3-4 minute clip, just talking about really the pace of change, how quickly things are moving, the fact that people are not in regular jobs the same way as they were in the past, etc. Do check it out, because if ever you've got stakeholders or parents who are saying, why do we need, what's the importance of these 21st century skills? I think that short clip answers all of their questions. You know, preparing children for the future, they need to have this range of skills. So it's great to get your feedback on that. Thank you for taking part.
Yeah,
so,
people shared plenty of websites in the chat and ideas, so this is very good.
Fantastic.
And then now it's time to share with you some practical examples that you can take back to your classes, right, Rachel?
Absolutely, absolutely. So as I started to get a little bit passionate about resources, I found that I was searching for resources, and as I said to you, found plenty of content-based resources, and particularly I think although we were a PYP school, we were also following the UK national curriculum, which is very objective led. So, and particularly again in those standalone lessons when it was maths and English, I found that it was easy to revert into that sort of formal teacher talk led lesson, and that's where the ATLs went a little bit awry rather than in the unit of inquiry. A couple of examples here with the graphic organisers. I'm sure lots and lots of you use partner talk as one of your strategies, but a graphic organiser around partner talk, I found that a really useful tool, because it helps your children actually model what they're discussing, and it frames that discussion for them as well. So having something like this will just give them the model, the frame of what they're talking about, and it also makes them accountable, that they're not just sitting together having a little chat about what they're going to do later, but they're actually having that discussion and they've got something to feed back to you. So formalizing that, it helps model those social skills, those communication skills through resources such as this. I think the next one, Ali, is again, I thought this was a resource that works quite nicely for when children are trying to do their maths problems, which so many times children get in a pickle with this, and it's one of those lessons which can end up being quite formal if you're not careful. So again, these graphic organisers, they can actually write down what the problem is, think about it, you know, in pairs or in groups, isolate those keywords, check what it's getting them, what the question's asking of them, working out what operations they need, show the working out, check it out. They can easily then, or use a teacher and them as learners can actually look at that and think, okay, which area of that problem do I have the most difficulty with? So straight away you can start to isolate those misconceptions. And again, it's a simple maths lesson, but by using things like this, you are then able to build in that discussion, the thinking skills, the communication skills, even research skills. You can very easily attach some of those ATLs into what would otherwise be a formal lesson.
What was so interesting that all of my speakers this morning, they referred to a slide for math. So in the problem solving session, we had a reference to math. In the gradeless classroom, we had a reference to math, and now we had a reference to math. And because I think math and the 21st century skills, they really connect, right?
They have lots of opportunities to connect, absolutely. Somebody's just asking, would this work in KG2? Absolutely. If you model how to use those graphic organisers, and that is why on some of those there's little icons, you know, you can adapt them, and if you just put in like a pencil icon or a calculator icon or a chat icon, something then that lends itself to various
self-explanatory
languages.
Yeah,
absolutely, self-explanatory, that's that's the word. Yeah. Again, I started to explore some ways that we can flick things around and build those ATLs into resources. So this is the kind of thing that I started to explore, built around that sort of deconstruct, reconstruct idea that we use commonly. It works so well in maths, in those standalone lessons, and builds those ATLs in. So, for instance, here, giving them the answers, giving them how things are worked out, and then prompting discussion, prompting that, what do you notice about this? What do you notice about that shape? Does it repeat? What words? So again, back to those questions, presenting sort of a finished article of something in maths or language, whatever it may be, but then really focusing the children to notice and observe and build up their own understanding. By doing this, you are building those thinking skills, you're building the communication skills, and you're building those skills of lifelong learning. So if you're able to flip down, Ali, thank you. As you can see here, presenting some maths and really getting them here, drawing them into what, guiding them into what they need to notice to draw some conclusions. What do you notice? And then leaving room for them to observe and to consider and to think about questions that they might have. So I just started with some of our staff to play around with some of those resources and present it in that sort of, present the resources in a backwards way, just like we plan lessons in that reverse way. Here are the answers. It completely removes the threat for those children who struggle with maths and are stressed about getting the right answers. You present a sort of a finished product and then unpick it and let them build up that understanding. So try and sort of get the resources to do the same job as we're trying to do in the lessons, I found was a really useful technique, because it builds up with the children that discipline, that way of thinking, the way of noticing. So you're building in those observation and research skills as you go. So I thought here's something. It's not a twinkle resource. One of those formal sort of sheets. We're all pushed for time. Sometimes we just need to grab something like this, but how could we actually take a content resource like this? Let's just take some suggestions in the chat. How can you take something like that and flick it around so that you can start to embed some ATLs in that? What would you do? Somebody comes in and says, right, here's your maths lesson for today, crack on with it. What would you do with this resource to flip it around?
Oh, I love the idea. So look to this worksheet. I'm sure if we are all math teachers, we've used something similar. How can you embed the ATL, the 21st century skill, in a worksheet like that? Let us know your idea. Feel free to answer on Facebook or here in the chat of Zoom, and I will be sharing your ideas aloud. And so let's see, are we able to embed and to teach the ATL using a very simple basic worksheet that we found on the internet or that we created? I have some ideas already, but I'm waiting to hear from our
yes.
Audience.
I've also got some to share.
So what would you do to embed the ATL, approaches to learning, or 21st century skills? So allow each one to solve the question individually, and then they share the answer and they work together. Use concrete materials, so provide them with manipulatives, and then using manipulatives will help them to solve these problems. What else? So we got individual work, then peer sharing. We got use hands-on material. What else do you have? Maybe use a timer, so to make sure that they can finish on time or start on time. So this is related to the self-management skills, okay, or organizational skills, depending on how we are calling it. Yes, so make the
Yep.
learning authentic. So change it to a marketplace and then let them do the math in a real life context. Maybe work
Nice.
collaboratively to solve this. I'm getting also, you can answer some question incorrectly and then allow them to find what is wrong.
Yeah,
So you as a teacher, you
absolutely.
provide them with the answers, have some answers wrong,
Yeah.
and let them find the wrong
Yeah.
answer. This is from Nermeen, and Nermeen will be presenting in approximately 20 minutes. So with more ideas about ATL. We can embed
Fantastic.
the collaboration, use think per share. I'm thinking about self-assessment. If we give them the answer sheet and then they do a self-assessment, maybe divide them into groups, and then the groups, they need to explain how they answered and share the process of answering. Voila, Rachel.
Absolutely.
I'm keeping also an eye on the
Fantastic.
time. We still have approximately 10 minutes. So, and I want to remind everyone, if you have any question to Rachel, don't forget to send it in the Q&A box.
Okay, lovely, great ideas. Thanks, Ali. If you could head to the next slide, that would be fantastic. Okay, that's what we've been doing, having a little chat. So so this is something that was developed within our MYP and PYP at school, because I noticed in the survey quite a few of you know when you are explicitly teaching those ATL skills, but quite a few of you did put that sort of suggestion down. Maybe it's a little bit trickier sometimes for the children to know what their skills are. So we developed, again, it was a basic rubric where we could, as you can see at the top, it says communication skills. So you can just flick in whatever skill it is you're working on, and the rubric works for whatever skill you're working on. And so we might just pick one or two key ATLs and have the children self-assess how they were developing with that skill. This one was probably, depending on your age groups, we introduced these at around sort of grade 4 level. And if, Ali, if I could just trouble you to flick onto the next slide, we actually sort of reduced it down for different learners and different ages, and just did a very simple rubric there. We were very fortunate in the school where I was working here, where we had iPads, and the children we could just post the pads and they could self-record what they're doing. Just leave a little comment, they can come back, and because it was on screen, they could easily track where they were. But I did actually find that quite a useful tool. And if you could actually start, as we're talking about that vertical alignment, you could actually start to connect a rubric like this with those ATL continuums as you go up, so that you can see and start to build all that into a process. Takes a little bit of work and effort, but I think then it really starts to involve the children in knowing which skills they're working on. So I hope that's quite a useful idea. So I think we're sort of heading towards a few little sort of reflection comments, and so I'm just trying to capture some of those tricks and practical things for primary teaching particularly, and into MYP. So could we just take some of your ideas, how, based on today and the chats you've had with one another through the chat, how would you tweak some of the things that you might do? What might you take back to your classroom or take back to your schools?
I'm seeing people making connection to the morning session. So this is beautiful for the people who attended the morning session.
Fantastic.
And the people who missed the morning session, you can find them on our YouTube very soon, maximum by tomorrow morning. All the 6 sessions will be recorded and available for you. So if you want to change one thing in your class after this session, what would be the change? What are the takeaway? Feel free to put these in the chat. I'm seeing people that on Facebook, they liked your subdivision of practitioner, because usually it was like directly jumping to the last category of the rubric. And so while you are reflecting on what are the new ideas or the takeaway, I think I'm going to check what do we have next. And these are the questions that we addressed today. And so people, they started answering, Rachel. So we are going to try the new resources that we mentioned today. Sundus will focus more on the communication skills. I use the other one, but sometimes I run out of time and students, they don't have the chance to communicate their findings. So recording, use the technology. This is excellent. Rebecca, hi Rebecca. So she loved the idea of the rubric you just shared, and then creating something like that with my teacher, it might be useful. I'm happy to hear that people, they found that the graphic organizers or the 8-point lesson by Dr. Jake, or even the graphic the reflection sheets that you shared, or even the open-ended questions, are things that they are going to take back to their classes. And so what about your website, RDG Resources? What is that, Rachel?
Yes. So my final reflection, I hope this was just was born out of a bit of a passion for resources, and just finding those resources that help embed the ATL skills as you go. Like I say, I was finding lots of content things. So I have actually just started a website as well, RDJ Resources. And on there you'll find the graphic organisers I've shared today. There's bunches and bunches of graphic organisers on there. There's little maths videos, language videos, etc. That really I was kind of thinking about that construct, deconstruct idea, that not really particularly for whole classes as such, but maybe for small groups where you've got a group of learners that you could send off to watch a small 10-minute mini lesson and then feedback their learning to you. So those independent learners, or maybe where you can send children off, watch video, and it might consolidate their learning. So it was about general resources and extension consolidation activities, which just support the 21st century skills as we go, because like I say, I struggled to find them. It is very much at the beginnings. I've just sort of got going. It's up there. Ali, if you just share the last slide. Sorry, the one with the Twitter handle, etc.
I did all these, and now I'm sharing the website, so they will be able to see the website if you.
Fantastic.
I'm sharing the website so they can see the website.
There is an IP address as well, because we did have some difficulties in the Middle East region with some loading. So there is an IP address there as well, and I will be continuing to add resources to that, and hopefully it's of use to IB educators or people who are keen on developing those 21st century skills. And Ali, I appreciate being able to share.
Good. So this is the website. It's full of ideas for you. And then this is my website. We still have 2 sessions this afternoon. Another session about ATL in practice. Nermeen will be here in 15 minutes. And then we will wrap up the day using using the Arabic language. As you know, I speak French, Arabic, and English. So we will look at art and how arts can help us integrate the approaches to learning or 21st century skills. If you are a French speaker, next week also we have a French session, so don't forget, go on the website, check our YouTube channel, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, depending on where you are on the social media, so you can follow all the updates. And I announced it this morning, if you didn't attend the morning session, on the 11th of December, so the last month of this year, we are doing a well-being day, Rachel. And for this well-being day, we will be addressing it also from different perspective. I have counselors, I have psychologists. They will come and talk about well-being in French, in English, and in Arabic. So we will have a short break and see you after the break for our session 2, ATL in practice, from Nirmeen's perspective this time. And so Rachel, again, thanks for your time and thanks for this valuable webinar.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who's attended and your fabulous comments. And thank you very much, Ali, for hosting and organising such a great event for everybody.